the challenge of not judging, the challenge of not feeling superior. Yeah.
Good challenges. Actually, I'm going to repeat again what you guys have said so far. So far, then you have mentioned that we should focus more on what we have in common. However, some of those challenges, can you repeat some of those challenges? Because I think we're going to have to, during this academic period in which we're going to focus now in the communication, let's focus also in some of those challenges. Okay, could you repeat some of those challenges, Livia, again?
Yeah, I said the challenge of not judging and the superior feeling.
Okay, very good. And actually, Aranza is also sharing like the challenge of the stereotyping or prejudice, like to have experience like labels, ethnocentrism that we have talked about before. Very good, very good. And somebody else was raising their hand. Could you please go ahead? Yes, go ahead.
Even though we may not share the same common ground as culture-wise, we still are human beings. So we still have basic needs like sleeping, like eating food, like sexual reproduction, like having the ability to be acknowledged as a person and have like their own identity. So I think that that makes us compatible in some sort of ways in a perspective of we can share opinions, and maybe that leads out to friendship, to communion, to just like idealizing the fact that we're both human beings and we both share like the same basic needs, even if it's just like intellectual or organic.
Very good. I love this discussion, guys. And first of all, again, the importance of having this discussion was to start brainstorming because today we're actually going to learn during this week something that's going to help us maybe understand people better. And actually, before the beginning of the class, when Mr. Jenkins was here, I was actually telling him, you know what, honey? Now that I'm delivering this class, every time I deliver this class and every time I get prepared to teach these same topics, I even wonder, how are we together? How do we understand each other? Because we're so different. And in a minute, when I start talking, and you can see if you already have the presentation, we're going to be talking about high context and low context, understanding perception and context. So that creates, it's not better or worse, it's just different ways to see the world. And that's going to be something we're going to be talking about today. Julie, could you go to the next slide now? Thank you very much, guys, for that discussion. Now, first of all, let's begin with three very basic definitions of what intercultural communication is. Again, maybe in our final test or in our final quiz, I would like you to create your own definition, but also if you can take the most out of these definitions, I would really appreciate it. So, Livia, can you read definition number 1, please? And then definition number 2, Aranza, and definition number 3, Juan. Go for it.
Sure. Definitions: intercultural communication. Intercultural communication refers to the communication between people from two different countries, Chan and Starosta.
Very good. Thank you. Next one, Aranza.
Intercultural communication is a symbolic, interpretative, transactional, contextual process in which people from different cultures create shared meanings.
Okay, we have more information here. Very good. Yes, yes. And next one, Juan.
Term intercultural communication refers to the process of communication that takes place between people of different cultural backgrounds, whether they're from different countries or different subcultures within the same country.
Very good. Now, as you can see, we have different definitions, actually from different years. But one of the reasons why I shared one of the beginning, the 1998 and 19, even both are from 1998, and then the 2009, is because the last one, actually, if you think about it, what I like about this definition is that people of different cultural backgrounds, whether they're from different countries or different subcultures. Remember, we talked in our academic period 1 that sometimes within a same country, there are different cultures. Remember, we have always made that mention, right? That when we talk about intercultural communication, it's not necessarily among countries, right? It can be among different areas, the north, the south. Remember Brazil, we have talked about this, Julie, Livia, Brazil is different. And also when Alec and Yana have been there, here they said Siberia, right? So different from the south. And I imagine all of you guys, also Juan in Colombia, we do also perceive this in Mexico. So intercultural communication sometimes, even within our same country, guys, it is challenging because we come from different realities, correct? In Mexico, the north, the center, the south, complete different cultures. Can you go to the next one, please, Julie? Thank you. Okay, so let's very briefly study a little bit about what's the history of intercultural communication and when people started talking formally in this new century, in these recent centuries, of course, about intercultural communication. Can somebody help me read? Paulina, can you help me read the history of international communication?
Yes. You can hear me? Okay. The
Yes.
formal study of intercultural communication in the United States originated in 1946 when Congress passed the Foreign Service Act, which established the Foreign Service Institute to provide language and anthropological cultural training for foreign diplomats.
Let's stop there for a second. Thank you, Paulina. Really appreciate it. So the first time we were referring to intercultural communication, and try to think back a little bit of history. We're talking about diplomatic life. Why? Why do you think it had to be through diplomatic life? First of all, what brings to your mind? What comes to your mind, sorry, when you talk about diplomatic life? What if you try to go back to maybe some of the movies, you know, historical movies you have watched in the past? What does diplomatic service, what does diplomatic world sound like? What kind of reality, what kind of things were happening? What are you thinking of when you think about diplomatic life? And it's okay if you say, I have no idea. That's okay too, right? But have you seen movies maybe about the 40s, the 50s? What does it sound like? Come on, guys.
I believe they are like this one who represent some country, so they have this need to communicate with another other countries, other representatives. So yeah,
Very
it's
good.
interesting to think about it actually.
Actually, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because it was the 40s. We were starting to have more across the different countries traveling. It wasn't not only by boat. Now we had planes, right? At the beginning. And then we have diplomats, which are, for those of you who are not aware of this, different countries will always have ambassadors, right? In different parts of the world, in other countries, right? So this was the beginning when they started creating and talking about how do these ambassadors go into a different country, go into a different culture, what things they have to take in consideration in order to be effective whenever they arrive in this new country. Is this making sense, guys? Ambassadors things? Very good. Paulina, can you continue reading, please, outside the Foreign Service?
Outside the Foreign Service Institute, the study of intercultural communication is generally associated with the publication of Edward T. Holt's book, The Silent Language, in 1959, while associated with the Foreign Service Institute. Holt applied abstract anthropological concepts to the practical work of foreign service and extend the anthropological view of culture to include communication.
Thank you so much. So for the first time, because of diplomatic activities, for the first time, they were starting to talk about, so culture is related to how we're going to understand each other. It goes beyond language. So it was also in this year, guys, in which they realized that intercultural communication had to do with two things. And I want you to write them down. One is culture, of course, and the other one is language. So they realized, okay, so there are two things. Language does not necessarily cover everything related to culture. And culture actually teaches us or shows us about the framework and the reality of how people, live their lives, which may be very different to ours. So it's not only about speaking a different language, it's also about different understanding a different culture. Got it? Can you go to the next one, please, Julie? Thank you. I feel like I'm all over. Thank you. So in 1976, Valeria, can you help us read, please?
Yes, teacher. In this 1976 book, Hall focused on attention of the communication of high context and low context cultures. Cultures in which little of meaning is determined by the context because the messages is encoded in the explicit code are labeled low context. Cultures in which less has to be said or written because more of the meaning is in the physical environment or already shared by people are labeled high context.
Thank you so much, dear Valeria. Actually, we're going to understand this a little bit more when we continue with the next slides. Can we go to the next one, Julie? And I'm going to give you a very good example, okay? The first one you're going to get is when we talk, for example, about the culture of serving tea in Japan, which is a very good example. We're going to talk about that. And actually, sorry, because I had to share already the presentation with you because I had an activity with you. But now that you have the presentation, you have the answers. But that's okay. We're going to make it work. Don't worry. Okay. So can you help me read this? Again, we're going to try to analyze and understand this first difference. Now, before we go on, guys, it's very important that we mention we're not trying to separate. As I already mentioned in some of our previous classes, the intention of this class is not to divide or separate. The intention of this class is, of course, to make people come together. And as you already expressed at the beginning of this class, to focus more in the similarities that we may have than in those differences, right? However, guys, in order for us to become aware, remember second academic period was about awareness, was about understanding, was about being conscious of. In order for us to be conscious of how we can be more empathetic, how we can be more, welcome different cultures, understand cultures, we also need to understand why some cultures may perceive the world differently. Remember also in our first academic period, guys, when we talk about worldview, remember that part? And we said that worldview was defined by how we were raised, values, principles, and every different culture inevitably has different values, different principles, different cultures, therefore, different worldviews. So everything we're going to be addressing for the next, at least the rest of this class and next class, is not meant to separate, but is meant to help you understand differences so that later on we can put these differences together. Okay, very good. So can you help me read, please, this slide? Who else do we have here? I'm sorry. Oh, Julie, you can help us read, please. Thank you.
Okay, think of the difference this way. Upon meeting a stranger, your verbal communication with that person is highly explicit or low context, simply because you have no shared experiences. You cannot assume anything. However, when you communicate with your sister or brother with one who you have shared a lifetime, your verbal communication is less explicit because you make use of your shared context. For example, the mention of the certain names can lead to laughter. With a stranger, you would have to explain in language the story that name represented.
Very good. Thank you, Julie. Let me give you an example. Remember, guys, when I try to give you cultural examples and I tell you, students from abroad, be patient for a minute. I'm going to say something in Spanish first, and then I'm going to explain it. Remember how I say that? Okay. When I say things in Spanish, I'm saying this in Spanish because I know my students in Mexico, we share something and they're going to understand perfectly well what I'm talking about, right? Like when I say OXO, Everybody knows what OXO is in Mexico. However, for my students in Brazil, in Russia, in Colombia, like, I have no idea what you're talking about, professor. Of course you don't. And then I'm going to explain. OXO are the most famous convenience stores that we have in Mexico. And even Mr. Jenkins knows now what OXO is, because when we went to Mexico, we found an OXO at every corner, right? And you can buy anything in OXO. I know. I've been telling him, do you remember OXO? Yes, he remembers OXO. So why at the beginning I'm not so specific? Well, because we shared something, which is that context, that knowledge. However, when you are with somebody who doesn't know you, who doesn't know the places you're from, you have to be a little bit more explicit, correct? Okay, yes, there is Mexico in OXO's country. You're right, Livia. Now you understand. Instead of Mexico, it's OXO country. You're absolutely right. Now you understand that. Can we go to the next slide, my dear Julie, please? Because we're going to, oh, really? Is that the end? No, really. I'm wondering then if I sent, no, yeah, we skipped. Don't worry. There you go. There you go. One more, one ahead, one more. Nope. That one. Let's stop there. Very good. Thank you so much, Julie. Really, really appreciate your patience. So this is what I wanted to talk about with you guys. In low context cultures, verbal messages are elaborated and highly specific. They tend to be very highly detailed and redundant sometimes, but they are usually based on logic. Remember in our exam last week, guys, when you were comparing, for example, why Walmart was not successful in Germany? Was it Walmart, or was it, that was the one, right? Walmart in Germany. Who was the one presenting Walmart in Germany? Jana. Do you remember that? You're there, Jana. I think I can see you. Yes, Jana, are you there? I don't know if you can turn on your microphone. Who else presented with Jana? I can't remember. I'm so sorry. Who else? Oh, Paulina. Yes, very good. Okay, very good. So remember, guys, Paulina, help us here. Remember when you mentioned that Walmart tried to actually be very friendly, right? They tried to make everybody smile and everybody be friendly, which is not part of the German culture. Remember that, Paulina? I think you mentioned something like that. So usually the German culture, it's something that we define as low context because they are very direct. They are to the point. Remember also I have shared with you guys that when I am a presenter in Germany, my gesturing distracts them. Remember I have shared that with you, that when I do this, like I usually, you know me, yes, and that is distracting to them because in our high context cultures, Latin American cultures, what I say with my hands, what I say with my intonation, what I say with my gestures, it's part of communication too, correct? But when you're like this, we were watching yesterday a football game, a soccer game with Mr. Jenkins. And I remember I asked him, one of the coaches from one of the teams, our team, he's from Spain. And I think he's like me. He's always like gesturing, and I know, right? But the other coach, I was really impressed. His face was like this all the time, even if if they were like, I know. And I asked him, where is he from? And he said, he's Dutch, from the Netherlands. I know. So I know. So it's not that we're trying to, it's not a stereotype, but we can understand that people coming from low context cultures like the Netherlands, for example, or Germany, right, are more direct. They need things to be, and maybe less like us in Latin America, that we use a lot of expressions and gesturing, and our face is always changing. That's high context. And I'm going to read what it says. In high context cultures, most of the information is either by the physical context or internalized in the person. Very little is in the code explicit, which is the words, okay? Transmitted part of the message. So you can say one word, but that same word said without intonation is just the meaning of the word, right? If you say white, is white, period. But when you say white, like white, okay, there's an extra meaning there. It's like white, what, you don't like it, right? So we infer a lot of information on intonation. We infer a lot of intonation of white. Okay, so the face, that means not your favorite. So high context cultures, that's what I'm trying to express, guys. High context cultures are more sensitive to non-verbal messages. And now we were going to have a practice, but let's do the Japanese part. Can you go to the next slide, please, Julie? Thank you. Let's talk about this example, which is the Japanese part. Thank you, Julie. Oh, you were going to, can you watch this video, guys? I cannot do it here, but can you please watch it? It's only 2.5 minutes, please. Can you share the link? I think you may have it also in your presentations. Let's see. In Mexico, it should be 3 minutes. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. In Mexico, it should be 3 minutes to 8 p.m. So let's watch it and let's meet back here again in 3 minutes, okay? I'm going to silence myself so I can give you time. Thank you. Okay, guys, so if you have finished, and I know I can see many of you laughing because I think for many of you it makes sense. Did you finish, guys? Can you give me digital thumbs up? Oh, not yet. Okay, sorry. Make sure to take notes of the keywords, okay? Can you go, Julie, to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay. While we reflect on the video, and I'm going to go back to the video in a minute, I wanted to share with you this very good example, because usually examples and analogies are going to help us understand this better. As you said in our brainstorming at the beginning, my dear students, of course, it's about finding things that we may have in common. You all said it, we're all, human. There's so many things we have in common. However, something we have been talking about from academic period 1, and maybe not so much in academic period 2, but we emphasized this in academic period 1, is the key to culture, how we were raised, our values and our principles, remember? And if we don't understand how people see and perceive things differently, we're going to have a very difficult time thinking that only language is going to help us understand something. A lot of people, and I'm going to make a little parenthesis here, guys. The fact that we can speak and communicate in English, even if English is not our native language, for none of us here in this class is our native language. It's our second language or third language. We may think that because we speak English, that's it. We speak English, we can understand perfectly each other. No, we cannot. No, we do not. Because there's so much more information related to our culture that is not and cannot be shared through words only. And for example, the tea ceremony, what you can see right now in this slide, reflects the Zen and Taoist tradition celebrating the beauty in the mundane, the superiority of the spirit, and everything has to be about tranquility. This is important because I don't know if you have ever seen a video of the tea ceremony. Everything happens in silence. Absolutely everything. Can you go to the next slide now, Julie, please? Now, because everything happens in silence, all the communication, thank you, Julie, nothing is spoken. And I'm going to read this. All the meanings are in the context and shared experience of the tea house because there's music, the smell, everything is communication. The flowers, the calligraphy, the ceramic, everything is communicating something. Okay, but this is so amazing that I was able to share this from the writer, the person, the author that wrote about this experience. For example, a typical response from a low context observer is hurry up and drink the tea, right? Or remember when we have also talked about those experiences, I think Alex shared also one of those experiences in which, remember when we talk about this Chinese culture that has to do with relationships, and that if you don't create this relationship before getting to business in China, forget it. No business is going to take place. No business is going to take place, right? But in this case, for low context cultures or low context ways of thinking, they cannot understand why relationships are so important. They just want to go to the business, right? Get to the meeting, sign, and etc. Remember also when we shared this other example in which they called the lawyers to make sure that all the documents were perfectly well, and then the Middle East people left the meeting and they never came back. They were like, what happened? We thought we had an agreement, a verbal agreement. But the Middle East business people said, the moment you called the lawyers, that was offensive to us because for us, that meant you don't trust us. But no words were said, right? So it's everything in the context, guys. And the reason why I'm sharing this, guys, is because so many misunderstandings around the world are just based on this not understanding that we may have a different reason for acting the way we're acting. And this, for example, what we might seem like desperate. Oh, hurry, hurry. Remember, we have said sometimes that we believe that some cultures are egocentric and some cultures are, right? How about thinking they may not be egocentric and they may be low, in this case, maybe they be low context. because it's not bad or wrong or better. It's just the way they were raised, the where they grew up. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I keep saying, guys, the purpose of us understanding these differences at the end is going to be to unite, to be more understanding and more empathetic. That's what I'm trying also to create in you, to change that mindset into, instead of judging or feeling it's personal and somebody's attacking me, hold on. Maybe it's just the way they see the world. It's a different way to see things. So we already said that the Japanese ceremony, for example, is a revered tradition, which is derived from a Buddhist centuries and centuries and centuries of culture. So it's not even sometimes for this type of culture, it's important to explain to people coming from low context cultures why we do the things we do. Why do we have to explain this? It's very obvious for us, right? But no, it's not obvious for everyone. Can we go to the next one, please, Julie? And I'm sorry I'm not giving you a break, guys. I'm just because we already took like 20 minutes at the beginning. I'm gonna try to move on so we don't finish too late, okay? And I'm sorry again, this is the draft presentation in which I hope most of the presentation is here. I'll share the one once I can get access from my computer. So this is important. In some recent studies, European Americans and Japanese were shown scenes. This is so important, guys. Listen to this. Each with a background scene and a foreground object, okay? Now, these experiments compared perceptions of change in the foreground and perception of change in the foreground. So that means the image had some things here and some things in the background, correct? Okay, this is an experiment, this is real. European Americans were significantly better at detecting changes in the foreground, here in the front, but not things that were changing in the background. Whereas Japanese people were able to identify things that look different in the background. I know. Those studies have argued that Europeans, which are mostly, again, low context, we're not going to label, we're not going to stereotype, but mostly because of the way they were raised, focus attention on objects independent of context. And because why everything is logical and everything is going to be probably maybe analytical. However, East Asians in this case focused on the context because they perceived everything holistically, completely, right? Okay, so before we move on, guys, could you maybe share if you have faced this difference in which maybe what we say somebody overreacted or maybe the opposite? Maybe you were the one overreacting when people didn't see that, perhaps, right? And it's not about gender situation. Let's talk more about things that, for example, and I'm going to go back to Paulina. I can never forget, Paulina, when you went to Spain and everything was closed on Sunday because I can see you suffering. Like everything is closed. Because a lot of people, let me tell you this, guys, a lot of from my Latin American, mostly Mexican students going to Europe and these places where everything is closed on Sundays. You know what they tell me? Teacher, is depressing. It's depressing to see all this, right, Paulina? And you went, you live there. Everything is closed. So if you didn't do your shopping on time, everything is closed. So for me, for us, for Mexicans, it's depressing. However, once I guess you get used to it, Paulina, I imagine at the end, you just like, yeah, whatever, it's closed. Like, yeah, exactly. But now imagine, I'm going to ask this to my students, probably all of you in Latin America, with the exception of Yana, who I think, I don't know if, Yana, would you able to open your microphone? I could never hear Yana participating. But most of us are from Latin America, right? If I tell you everything is going to be closed on Sunday, everything. First of all, our church is open on Sundays because most of us, I know, right? For most of us, we were raised being taken to church on Sundays. Even if you don't go to church anymore, at least your mom or your dad used to take you to church when you were kids, right? So maybe it's still a tradition, I don't know, but there's like a routine situation happening, right? And then after church, they will go either to visit mom, grandma. Sunday is the day to go to see the family. Exactly. You see, that is context. That is exactly what we're talking about. But what if I tell you And you may think, oh, that's horrible. What if I tell you here, this culture, not here, it's different because remember, even though we're in Seattle, we have two different cultures here, so that's not going to work. But for example, here, I remember my dad here in Marysville before he passed away. His Sunday was sitting down in front of the television to watch the Seattle Seahawks game. That's it. That's it. That was the center of his Sunday, right? And but and also in Mexico, sometimes we sit in front of the TV, right? Or men, the dads usually had used to be more when the gender used to be more like the soccer and the football are more related to males and not females, right? Remember? So again, what's better, what's worse? No, it's just these traditions that we have in our families. Why would somebody have to understand from the beginning and from, that's the way it is? Could you go to the next one, please, Julie? Okay, let's talk about this. And now I'm going to open the microphones because I would like to know if you're thinking about examples. Context. Can you help me read context, Valeria, please?
Yes, teacher. Context literally means with text. It's all of the information surrounding what is being said. From the setting to the people involved, understanding within a given culture, the context of any interpersonal exchange can impact much of what is said. I mean, culture norms regarding context vary greatly. In many ways, these culture differences related to context influence how people communicate.
Thank you. And I'm going to repeat this last part. Again, it's not about making difference or separated, but it's about understanding difference so we can come together. And in many ways, these cultural differences, guys, related to context, are going to influence how we communicate. And that's the whole point of today's class, trying to create this sense, this awareness that, yes, we have many things in common. And of course, we're all human beings. However, we cannot control the fact that we're coming from different cultures with different traditions and different ways of doing things, correct? So I would like to know if you have ever faced this situation, either in which you were high context, low context, etc. Can anyone maybe share one or two examples? And we'll go in a minute to the activity. I know we're not going to do activity because now you have the presentation and you can see the answers, but that's okay. That's okay. All right. But can somebody maybe share maybe one or two examples, and then we'll go to the activity, and then we'll continue talking about some other examples, okay? Think when you have maybe, again, maybe for you, something was like, I didn't understand why this is happening the way it was. I'm going to start giving you my example, okay? And then you share, guys. I think I have shared with you guys that I had a wrong stereotype about the first time I went to England with Mr. Jenkins. And I am very honest. I had an idea. I had a very close-minded idea in which I stereotyped all British, right? Which is horrible because, of course, no, that's not how things are. But in my head, right, that's how I thought things were. But this was actually something that I loved. And I even told Mr. Jenkins, I have told him many times, something that I wasn't expecting and surprised me is when we remember Mr. Jenkins is from the north part of England, right? And something that I loved is the family. Families also get together. I know. And even in the restaurants on Sundays, you can see the families with the children and everyone. I know. And we also had like a barbecue, like in Spanish, we say una carne asada, maybe something like that, we would say in Spanish. And I know. And we were all to his niece house, and all the family, it was a huge family. We were like 20 of us. I think I've shared the picture. I'll share the picture with you. We have a picture and there are like 12 of us, 15 of us in one picture. Just, the babies, the daughter, the son, the nieces, the nephews, the girlfriend, everyone is there, right? And that was amazingly surprising to me. And I should probably feel ashamed that I wasn't expecting that, because I was expecting and I'm going to say it with all the respect that I have now for my new family in England. I was probably expecting a colder, uh, is this making sense? Like a colder culture, and again, we're speaking about this part, and this is one example in which I didn't realize that we had so many similarities, like you were saying. So many similarities. Like when I grew up, right? Everything was family and Sundays and barbecues. And I know that was very surprising to me. Now, I would like to know examples about you guys, because this class is not only about me. I want to hear from you. And if you could please share also those experiences in which context maybe, or the opposite, maybe you thought it was going to be one way and then, ooh, I don't understand what's happening or why things are being done differently. Juan, you've been living, and I know you have been traveling and you've been in the States for many times, for a long time. And also, have you been to England, Juan? Or how come? Can you share some of those experiences in you adapting to different contexts? Let's go to Juan and then we'll go to somebody else. Come on, guys. I need to hear from you. Who else is there? I don't know if Juan is listening to us. Is he still connected? Oh, yeah, there he is. Juan, if you can turn on your camera or your microphone, that'll be great. And then who else, guys? Come on, guys. I need you to speak. I need you to participate. This is a class in which you make the class. So, Livia, you can share some examples now that you're living in Mexico and that many things are weird.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I believe that, for example, although you are aware of the cultural aspects, if you don't know how to speak the local language, you will face a lot of challenge. Like, it seems you have, yeah, actually, it was like I felt, okay? I felt in the beginning that I was like having some boundaries, the limit like of expressing myself, but also understanding others. So in a point, it was too frustrating because I couldn't tell how I was feeling and what I was supposed to want, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking actually of an example because when I was in Brazil, I had these stereotypes of Mexico in my mind. So I was already thinking like, oh my God, it's gonna be too different of my reality. I'm not gonna support it. Oh my God, how can I deal with that? But actually, now surrounded by Mexican culture, I cannot even think about a different thing. Like I've been too involved to mix to blend that I'm it's not that clear anymore what are the differences. I can only see the similarities like in this week. Sorry, teacher, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go, say the example. Yeah.
So I say that in this week I visited two classes of Portuguese in UNLA, and I was talking about the culture of Brazil and the the cultural talks when they arrived and etc. But when a guy asked me like, okay, so what are the most different things you see between Mexico and Brazil? And I stayed there for like 5 minutes thinking, and then I couldn't answer because I don't know anymore. Like I'm too blended, and now I can really see our similarities. Like I don't know if because we are too close, right? And we are all Latin Americans, but actually we are too similar. Yeah, but it's interesting.
But I
It's
wanted to
very
share with you,
interesting.
Livia, also. If you had your exchange student and your mobility experience in Monterrey, in Tijuana, in Oaxaca, things will be very different, because I think Morelia, it's in this case very central Mexico, and even right now you're living the Day of the Dead situation, for example, right there in Morelia. And honestly, there's no other place. And I've lived in many places in Mexico. I lived in Culiacan, I lived in Puerto Vallarta, I lived in Puebla, I lived in Mexico City. There's no other place in which I have enjoyed the Day of the Dead celebration and tradition as much as in Morelia, for example. So if they asked me, you having lived in Culiacan, for example, in Morelia, are they different? Yes, they're very different. Traditions are different. Yes. Values, very, very different. Principles, very different. Oaxaca, same, very different. So I think, Livia, in this case, probably you are in a place that is very similar to the place you're coming from, you know? And now, could you go to Juan? I saw you, Juan. Could you please also ask Manny how you have dealt with this context situation? Because also, you are from Colombia, but Colombia is not the same all around, right? So could you please share this situation about the context, Juan?
Oh yeah, even inside our own regions in Colombia, it's pretty different. And you can see it reflected more in like politics and stuff like that, because each region has their own sort of like speciality in the economics of the country. So Medellin, for example, is well known for all the drugs problems, but more than that, just like fashion, silk, and everything to do with fashion in general. Barranquilla is well known because of the economics based on their port. Same with Buenaventura. Cali, it's mainly about sugarcane. Bogota is where all the multinational companies are located at. Cartagena is tourism, and all of that impacts and has an impact on the way their society revolves around their economy, the values they like, they even value more. Even I'm repeating myself, but I mean values as just like things that are moral, and also how much they think it's important for them. So parts of the country like Medellin, they're very conservative. Their influence in politics is well known because they are used to have money, and they're very much like protectionist towards like rights, um, economy, and stuff like that. Whereas cities like, I don't know, Pasto, Buenaventura are more they've experienced firsthand that just like poverty and stuff like that, so they're biased, which what other regions of the country think about. So it's pretty different even inside the country.
Exactly. And you see how the context, guys, and at least I don't know if this happens also in most of your countries. And Yana, I don't know if your microphone is working or not, because I would like to know, because I know Russia is also big. It's a huge country. And we're talking here about most of our countries are huge countries. And at least I can tell you, for example, when we speak Spanish, even the sayings, the slangs change if you're speaking with somebody from the north, or even if you're, I don't know, Livia, if you have had the chance to speak to somebody from Mérida, for example. We in the center, in the middle of Mexico, we don't understand people from Mérida very well. It's not easy. And as you said, Juan, values change. Let's go then, please, to the next slide, because now this is what's going to be the activity. We're going to do it together, actually. And this is the last thing that we're going to do today. We're going to finish with this exercise that we're going to do together. If you could go, thank you. This is actually, yes, no, yes, there you go, Julie, thank you. Okay, let's analyze this example. And I love this example because I actually shared in the next slide. If you, not you, Julie, you don't move, just stay there. But if you guys have the presentation, I hope I shared the link actually to where I got this information from. And there's a video that I was hoping in that website that you can watch, because the video, or listen to, is more about listening to. The video, it's about these two ladies, Cindy and Runa, okay? Cindy's from the US, of course, she's an operation manager, and Runa is also an operation manager. They're both operation managers, but because they're coming from different low context and high context, this is the difference. I want you, can you now go to the next slide, please, Julie? This is what I would like you to please listen. Can you please go? Thank you, Julie. Stay there for a second. Could you please click into that link? Thank you. Can you share the whole link in the chat? Or if you have the presentation, students, you can also go to right under where you see the profile of Cindy and Runa. Thank you, dear Julie. Thank you. Really appreciate it. You're going to see a little window with the video. It's very short, but I would like you to pay attention, please, to this video. It's very short, less than a minute, but please watch it. I'm going to silence myself because I really want us to see there's a communication problem happening between these two operating managers. Let's understand why. I'm going to be quiet now and watch or listen now to the video. Thank you. So give me thumbs up if you have finished watching it. Okay, interesting, huh? Oh my God, I'm so glad you shared that, Livia. No, actually, you know what? I am so glad we're sharing this because these are the examples that I was telling you about, guys. It's not personal. Do you realize that Cindy doesn't? Okay, who's right and who's wrong? You tell me. You tell me. What do you think, guys? Come on. What's your opinion? I know it's meant to blow your mind. So what do you think? Juan, have you finished watching it? I'm really interested in knowing what you guys think. So see, Livia is saying, okay, Livia, share with us. Why did you say that?
Yeah, I think there's no right or wrong, but it's the weight of the cultural background, right? So I feel so sad. Like, oh, could you please be more, I don't know, kind?
Do you
Like,
think?
wouldn't you mind of what people will think about this disorganized table? I don't know.
But
But it's,
guys,
yeah, it's
I'm
different.
so glad this is happening. You may perceive, because this same video watched by different people is in a different way, right? We're seeing this from our own culture and our own perspective, and that's why you'd say I will probably cry because we feel more. But probably somebody else watching would say, Cindy, well, I don't understand what's the big deal with the other, with Runa. And I'm not being offensive. I'm not trying, it's I'm not being offensive. I'm just trying to make sure, guys, that you have an open mind to different realities. So, who's right and who's wrong? What do you think, Valeria, about this example? Paulina, Julie, want to hear?
Um, I think as the videos of both are correct because I think part of being with people from other countries is learn about their cultures before so you can see what can you do and what can be considered as wrong or also learn. But I agree also with Livia. Uh, I would cry also.
And even Julie said, me too. Now, why am I sharing this with you guys? Because it's not personal. It's not that she's rude. It's not that Cindy's rude. I, I want you for a minute to try to understand that when you're coming from a low context environment, from a low context culture, it's the opposite. You will think, why is Runa making such a big deal? Juan, what do you think? Were you able to see it?
Oh yeah, I've dealt with that before. Like, I've dealt with British people, and from certain regions of London, they're really harsh, and also with German people. And it's not that they mean to be rude; it's just their culture is just harsh.
That is absolutely correct. Exactly. And it's not, you just said it, Juan. But I have a question now. Juan, you're used to it. But at the beginning, wasn't it a shock? Wasn't it shocking for you at the beginning?
I mean, not necessarily, because my teacher from German class, she kind of like told us about it beforehand, so I was kind of prepared for it.
So you kind of knew your expectation at least was like, okay, it's not personal. It's just the way it is. And again, it's not that people hate you. Well, I'm going to say something in Spanish that is also going to make sense. I don't know in Brazil, and I'll translate for Yana and for Alec because the class is being recorded. We say in Mexico, somos jarrito de tlaquepaque, which actually means anything you say, we're going to break. We're so sensitive. And Tlaquepaque is a little town near Guadalajara in which the material that they use to make the jarritos, which is like this, okay, but not Starbucks, of course. It's like a typical Mexican, craft. Tlaquepaque means they use a very thin material. So it breaks with everything. So that's what it means. Somos jarrito de Tlaquepaque means we're very delicate and we feel like we're going to break very easily. And exactly. So not only Juan, I think you were prepared. You were told, of course, about your professors, and that helps. But still, I would say some of us would probably still feel jarrito et tlaquepaque, like, no, it's still, it's too direct or too harsh or like you heard, right? But he's not, I know, but you see, and you heard, right? He's like and it's not bad, it's not wrong, not angry, it's just to the point, right? Right? It makes sense. Here in Colombia, suspiros, the white candy made of sugar. Oh, so you say you're like a suspiro because you're like so delicate. Like if I tell you something, you feel offended.
Yeah, they get
Suspiro.
easily offended here too. And so, did they say suspiro? I guess you guys have that too. Is the white candy made out of whites and sugar?
But how would you say it? You are eres suspiro, eres un suspiro? How would you say that?
Hey. Mm-hmm.
Eres un suspiro. That's very interesting. But also, this is, I think, characteristic of our Latin American cultures, right? In which we, right? But we can, exactly. So I'm so glad. And now let's finish with the next slides because we were going to do this as a game, but now that you have the answer, it's okay. It's okay. Can we go to the next one? So understanding, go to the next one, Julie. Thank you. Next one. And this was going to be low context and high context. We already said then that usually in low context, more direct, not rude. For us, it would seem rude, but it's the opposite. For low context, the high context seems like, why are you overreacting? Why are you going over details? Why are you insisting? Is this making sense, guys? Because then we seem like we are I know, right? Can we go to the next one, Julie, please? Let's finish this in the next 10 minutes. Thank you. So this is important. The words I say represent what I'm saying. If I don't say the words, there's nothing to infer, right? But it's the opposite to what we do things because we say things, but we actually mean something else, right? Can we go to the next one, please? I know, and I know you're laughing. I know why you're laughing. So in our world, high concept communication depends on all the elements surrounding the communication. Again, gestures, intonation, your face, everything, absolutely everything, and it has to do with relationships. Next one, Julie, please. We're going to rush through the next one. So this was the exercise, but it's okay. We're going to do it together. I was going to give you an example. For example, Claudia will always let you know exactly what she means, regardless of where she is or who she's speaking to. And here you were supposed to pick low context because you were supposed to be, like this is low context because Claudia needs things to be said correctly, directly. Low context communication speaks in a straightforward manner. And now, usually what happens, and I think for many of you guys who now have had more international experiences, like Juan, I can actually say that you are more straightforward. And I can almost say that you going back to Colombia, it might be tough for you or for some people to adjust to how maybe straightforward you have become because you see exactly. And it's not that you're a bad person or that you're an angry person or anything, but you have lived abroad and this changes the way we react. Even just before starting the class, I was telling Mr. Jenkins, I think we're together because I'm not the typical Mexican. Because yes, I'm Mexican, of course, and I go crazy sometimes, but I still try to use my logic. Like, I know. Yes, Juan, go ahead.
So after I finished high school, I went to the States and I was there for like 3 months, living there and going to high school there too. Just to kind of like get the experience, learn more English. And when I started doing my internships at college, I would get pissed so easily because I would go to meetings and everyone was just like grabbing coffee and having breakfast. I'm like, dude, you guys said 8:30, so like we're supposed to start 8:30, not to have breakfast at 8:30. What the heck?
I actually started being a little bit like you too. However, now because I know I am intercultural, and I'm global leadership professor, I try to be more empathetic and more patient with the type of people I'm around, and I try to be more respectful. But deep down, I'm also thinking like, guys, come on. I know, right? I know. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're almost finishing. We have 3 more examples. So Amit speaks very casually with his friends, but when around, no, one before, sorry. There you go, stop there. Thank you so much, dear Julie. Amit speaks very casually with his friends, but when around his superiors, he tends to change his tone and seems to speak more seriously. So this is high context. This is usually a person who can actually identify, and I think this is exactly what Juan was talking about. We're more able to adapt to a formal, context. And if you go to the next one, Julie, it's actually the opposite. It's somebody who, thank you. Oh, no, it's the last one, but I'll go to that. Let's stop here with Jim. Jim seems to have trouble directly saying no. He seems to talk around the subject when asked to do something. He can't with a desire to keep people happy. So he's going to be high context because most of the times we want to say no, but we don't want to say no because no, they're going to feel bad and I don't want them to feel bad and I may have to do it just because. And I know, and I can see you laughing, guys. I can see you laughing. Whereas when we face somebody who just says no, oh my God, he said no, how rude. No, he means no. Instead of us going around and around and around and around trying not to say no, correct? I know, because we don't want to feel rude. This is important. And let's go to the next example, which is the final one, Julie. Thank you so much, Julie, for being so patient. This is what I was telling you about. Bahati needs to be more respectful of her superiors because she's pretty casual with not just her friends, but with everyone. And also, this is something I have encountered with people coming sometimes from Mexico here to Canada. They cannot find sometimes the right tone. They're so, hey teacher, how are you? I'm going to no. That's not correct. Yes, I love you with all my heart, but hey dude, teacher, no, I'm not dude, teacher. Right? I know. But but I understand. So the first time I help them, I actually don't correct them. I just let them know, like, you know what, guys, today we had a wonderful learning opportunity. Somebody sent me an email saying this, hey dude. And I laugh, but many of them don't laugh. They go like, what's wrong with that? I don't see what's wrong with that. And then when I tell them it's okay, you are just coming to a new world, to a new country, and to a new culture. But I need to teach this because if we're going to fail, we're going to fail here together, not out there when you're going to get fired. So I let them know It's not appropriate to address your teacher, your professor, hey, dude. Like, no, that's not okay. But sometimes in some other cultures, that is okay. So again, this is the low context culture. So to wrap up today's class, guys, and in the next 4 minutes before we can say goodbye, can we go? I think the next one is just the reflection. If I'm correct, dear Julie, can you go? Okay, yes. So let me finish with this. When you're first interacting with someone, expect them to use the style of communication that, of course, we are used to, right? But when they don't, they can be jarring. This can be confusing, and you can feel like, oh, he's getting aggressive, or the other way around. Oh my God, why are they wasting so much time? And if you're aware of their context, then your expectation, your understanding, it's going to be easier for you to understand. You can manage some potential difficult situations in an easier way when you understand it's not personal. It's not personal. We just need to make sure we adjust if necessary, and we also adjust our expectations as necessary, okay? Remember to remain flexible and open, because we talk about this in this class, guys, but once we're out there, it's not the same. So this is going to be a challenge, and I'm actually going to, this homework that I'm going to give you on Wednesday is not something you're going to be writing. It's going to be more a post, but it's going to be about your own experiences. Okay, we're going to become more aware of those things. Can you go to the last slide? Is that the time for reflection, Julie? Yes, finally. So share with us one word, one phrase, something that you remember from today's class. What did you learn in today's class? What caught your attention? What did you realize? What did you remember? Why were you laughing? Share. We're not finished. We're not finished. This is just class 1 on intercultural communication, but I would like to hear from you or read maybe in your chat. What is something that you're going to take with you today? Valeria, what do you take with you today after this class?
Probably that values from the behavior are really, really important in business life.
Thank you so much. Livia, what about you?
I'd say not take things personally.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Very good. Make sure to write it down. Juan, what do you take with you?
I agree with Livia on that one, not to be jarritos like.
Not suspiros. Not suspiros. It's not personal. Yes, Livia. Sorry, Julie, what about you?
Oh, I think remain open to all the different cultures.
Very good, Julie. Thank you. Paulina, what are you taking with you?
Yes, like be open mind and like be aware that every culture is different and not take it personal.
Exactly, because we tend to take jarritos and suspiros. This is the whole class, okay? It's going to be very interesting if next class Iana and Alec can join us, because I would actually love to know about their perspective, right? It's going to be really interesting. So thank you very much for being so patient with me today. I am so sorry for all the technological problems we had. Thank you so much. You were the best. And I forgot, I even forgot about my costume. Have a wonderful Halloween tomorrow if you celebrate Halloween in Mexico. And on Wednesday, if I work out my laptop situation, I promise I'll take you downstairs to see our Day of the Dead altar. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Monday night, Monday afternoon, evening, morning, whatever you are. And see you on Wednesday, guys. Thank you. Thank you. See you.
Thank you,
Bye.
teacher.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.